Okay, this is it. This is the last set of notes for chapter 2.
Woohoo!
2.6, more two-step equations. Difference with these is that we might need to be simplifying some of our problems before we go ahead and solve them. So, first one, you'll notice that we have a term with a variable plus a term without a variable equals a negative 11.65. This one is very straightforward, just a simple two-step equation, except you have some decimals in there. That's okay, we can handle it. I am going to change this to plus a negative 0.03. Alright, first thing you always want to get rid of is the term that doesn't have the variable. Obviously we're starting on the side that has the variable. We want to get rid of this one first, the constant term. So I'm going to add the opposite of a negative 0.03. Just going to add 0.3. Oops, there we go. Those go away and I'm left with 1.4n. Over here I also have to add 0.03. And I end up with a negative 11.62. Alright. Should have done that first. There we go. Alright, so now I have 1.4 multiplied by something equals a negative 11.62. So, notice these are being multiplied. The opposite of multiplying by 1.4 would be to divide by 1.4. So I get 1n, or just n. And I need to divide this side by 1.4. Alright, should I do the whole long division or should I just say it miraculously?
Well, why don't we do it for some and then maybe not for all of them.
We'll do it for this one. Okay, so I'm going to take 11.62. Now notice that I have a negative and a positive. I know my answer is going to end up being negative, so I'm just going to ignore that portion. 11.62, I'm dividing it by 1.4. Alright, so I need to move this. I'm going to move this decimal, move it straight up. 14 doesn't go into 11, but it does go into 114. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say, that's 8 times. Let's see what 14 times 8 is. 4 times 8 is 32. That's 112. That's pretty darn close to 116, but not quite. Alright. 116 minus 112 is 4. Bring down the 2. Miraculously, 14 goes into 42 exactly 3 times. So we have negative 8 3/10. Alrighty, that one's good fun. Ooh, this one looks better. Okay, look at that fraction. Check it out. Okay. Well, the plus side to this is that I do see some common denominators, and that's a good thing. So we have a negative 5/11 h plus 7/9 equals 2/9. So obviously we're starting on the side where the variable is, but we're going to get rid of the constant term first. And the constant term happens to be a fraction. Fractions are numbers too. Let's not discriminate. To get rid of 7/9, we're going to add the opposite of 7/9, which would be a negative 7/9. So those go away. Getting rid of some of these fractions, that's a good thing. So I'm left with negative 5/11 h. I have to add a negative 7/9 to this side. This is pretty. We have the same denominator, so I'm going to end up with a 9th. I have 2 plus a negative 7. That equals negative 5. Alright, this should be starting to look like a familiar situation. I have a fraction as a coefficient. To get rid of a fraction, meaning to turn it into a coefficient of 1, I want to multiply by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply this by a negative 11/5. And then all that stuff will go away or turn into a 1. 1h, or just plain old h. I'm going to do the same thing over here and multiply by a negative 11/5. You might notice that we have a negative times a negative is a positive. I have these 5s that can cancel each other out. I end up with 11/9. It's improper, inappropriate. 11/9, 9 goes into 11 one time with 2 left over. 1 2/9. Oh, I went into the other one just a tad. That's all right. All right, so we have x divided by 8 minus 1/2 equals a negative 7/2. All right, so we are going to add the opposite here. I'll make the 1 negative. It doesn't matter since it's not a variable. All right, we want to get rid of a negative 1/2. I'll do that by adding a positive 1/2. I end up with x over 8 I'm going to add a positive 1/2 over here. Again, nice and pretty. I have the same denominator. I just have to figure out what a -7 plus 1 is. Happens to be a -6. And this should look like something you can simplify. -6 divided by 2 is a -3. So we'll make that even prettier. All right, we're not done. Something divided by 8 is a -3, which means I want to multiply by 8, or 8 over 1, to figure out what that something is. So those go away, and I'm left with x. Have to multiply by 8 here. -3 times 8 is -24. All right, you might be wondering, why isn't she checking any of these? Well, Mrs. Tremblay's out of the room right now, and I'm trying to get away with not checking things. Just kidding.
She's totally kidding.
She's totally sitting right here. It's not just Mrs. Tremblay who expects you to check everything. I do too. Got to be honest with you guys. It's, what is it, August 7th?
Yes.
We've been making all of your Unit 2 videos here in Mrs. Tremblay's basement. This is going on hour 6 for us. And quite frankly,
you can check them. You can check them tomorrow. That's what we're going to do.
Probably
for your starter.
So if you want to be ahead of the game, go ahead and start going back and checking them once we're done here. So you're not getting away with anything, just so you know. All right, here things are a little bit different. You'll notice that we have more than one variable on this side, which means we're going to kind of piece together all these things you've been working with, all Unit 2. We're going to combine our like terms before we go ahead and solve it. You want your equation to be as short as possible before you try to solve it. So I can see that 3y and a -8y are like terms. I'm going to put those two together, and I end up with a -5y plus 10 equals 25. Now it should look very familiar. I'm going to start again on the side where the variable is, but I'm going to get rid of the constant term first. So I'm going to get rid of 10 by adding a -10. Those go away. So I'm left with -5y over here. On this side, I end up with 15. Want to figure out what times -5 is a positive 15. I'm sure a lot of you can do this in your head. So could I, but I'm not. I'm showing my work just like you will. -5 divided by -5 is 1y, or just plain old y. 15 divided by a -5 is a -3. Go back and check if you want, or else you're doing it tomorrow. Okay. Next one. 4 minus 2y plus 3 equals -9. First going to do that because I can't take it. I do have a pair of like terms. Notice that the 4 and the 7 can be combined, or sorry, the 4 and the 3 can
Let
be
the cat out of the
combined
bag.
into 7. Turn it! I knew that one was going to take you a while. Alright, equals -9. Alright, we are going to get rid of the constant term first. We're going to get rid of the 7 by adding a -7. Those go away. I'm left with -2y. I have to add a -7 on this side. Those two combined make a -16. Alright, one more step. Divide by -2 to turn that into a 1y, or just plain old y. Divide by -2 over here. That gives me positive 8. Go back and check it. Alright. Ooh. My. These parentheses. What do I do?
Oh no.
Alright, remember, your equation is not simplified when it has parentheses in it, so we need to get rid of them. Remember, using the distributive property, we're going to take a -2 and multiply it by everything inside the parentheses. So I'm going to take a -2 times 3, which gives me a -6. A -2 times a positive 4x, well, -2 times 4 is -8. Don't forget the x, equals -30. That wasn't so bad. Now it should be, you should be like, wow, I could do that one in my sleep. All right, we're going to get rid of the constant term first by adding a positive 6. Do that to the other side as well. So I'm left with a -8x. This here leaves me with a -24. All right, get rid of a -8 by dividing by a -8, because a number divided by itself is 1. So I have 1x, or just x. Divide by a -8 over here. -24 divided by a -8 is a positive 3. And Mrs. Tremblay and I are going to go collapse, and we will see you tomorrow.